We're going to do another quick MagJS tutorial. This is going to be kind of a cool one. We're going to show how to use components and their children in another component. It's what we call component composition. You might be familiar with that in React. So just at the MagJS homepage for the latest tree development, we're going to go on to this code pen here and just do a fork of it. Let's see. And of course, the URL to the code pen will be in here. Let me edit that title. We're going to call it component composition. Let's call it that for now. Now we're going to get rid of most of the stuff here. We don't really need it. Let me see. We'll just do our generic ID root. I'm sure some of you are familiar with. That's going to be where all of our stuff's going to be. What we're going to do is we're going to create like a border application. But before we even do all that, we're going to create a simple kind of starter app where we're going to house everything. So of course you call your mag.js and you can do inline HTML, you can do an object, or you can create your own element node, or you can reference one in the document object. For now, we're just going to do app HTML. We'll make a localized string. So we got app HTML. And of course, you have to have a top level element, like something like that. And you have to have your function definition. And then you're going to attach it to your document object. So we just do it like this. We call our component with or without properties. We attach it. You can do document.getElementID, or you can just go like this, root. Now you don't see anything happening right now, but what if I change the HTML, for instance? We should see something there. But let's change our settings for a second in the JS. We don't need all this other stuff. We just need mag.js. Make sure we have that. Save and close. So nothing's showing up, right? So what's going on? Why isn't something being put in the root? Well, let's look here. We're not returning anything, right? So what if we just return a blank object, for instance? Would that make any difference? As you see, it does. So if you don't return anything, it's kind of almost like null. But when you return at least an empty object, it at least says, hey, I'm initializing. So it's just a way to differentiate between an active component or a non-active component. So we have something there, but what if we want to return it ourselves, right? So let's return just some text, for instance. You didn't see, oh, there it goes. It's just a little delay. So it just replaced the go with hi. Again, just kind of a simple way to transclude certain things. But more importantly, we would probably do something like a bold element, or we might have a button element, for instance. You might have multiple things that you want to change. So here is where the object comes in. You say for the bold specifically, I want to say hey. All right, and our button, we'll say like will be changed. But what we really want to do here is we want to do a border component that's reusable with the caller's children. So this is called component composition. You take one component, you put it into another one. All right. So the first thing is we're going to do here is we really want to create our border component. Now this will be a generic component that can be used by other people, and all that's going to do is going to house a very simple border, and in that border, you might do some things, but specifically, it's going to have some CSS. So I'm just going to grab some kind of CSS, and it will be able to change the color of that particular border. So grabbing some CSS. Okay, so in our CSS, this is kind of what it's going to be, just a fancy border. It could either be blue or red, for instance. HTML we don't really care about. CSS we're not going to care about. We just know we have blue or red. So back over here, what is our, what's it going to look like, right? So of course you have your parent element. I guess we can make this also into, let's call it border first, right? So this is our border object. We're going to say border HTML. And it's going to equal a string of stuff. All right, so we have our top level. Now we're going to have, let's say, actual class that will have CSS, and then the children itself. And it doesn't have to be called children. It could be called anything, but you just have to reference it. So let's create our function definition. We're just setting things up right now. We're playing this as we go along, and we'll see how things are going to go. So basically, is what you're going to want to do is you have this border HTML. You're going to change that CSS here, right? So you might say something like return, div class equals to the fancy border. And I think there was also a color, right? That was dependent on a property. So something like that. And then you would have like props.color. So that's how you're going to bring in the color. And the children is just going to be another properties that's going to be passing. Again, very similar to React. What you should know and be familiar with the composition there. So here's your div. The parent is just a container. So this is your actual div that you're manipulating. Your children's over here. Again, this could be named anything. This could be named anything, but this is a unique name, children. So props children will be the children of anything that's being called. So what does that mean exactly? So let's do a simple example. Let's say, hey, I want a fancy border here. And I have some things I want to be surrounded by the fancy border. For instance, let's think of something very simple, kind of like welcome, thank you for visiting, something very simple like that, okay? So how about that? We'll say welcome, thanks for visiting. That would probably be an H1, the first one. So here you can see we've got some children of our object here, our element there. Oh, and I can't type. So these are the children of this element, right? So we want to reference this guy here and apply our border object here, this guy, to that. So all you do is you go like this and you call it. And then you notice how it added a border around that. Okay? So that's the first thing you can note there. Now, obviously we wanted some color. There's no default color. We could add a default color, but we're going to just pass the color. We're going to pass the color in. We're going to say, let's default to blue, for instance. And now you see it's using the properties, the fancy border, the CSS that we pulled over, and the children are being put in here. Now, you can look in the HTML, but here, let me just put here, I'll say before. See like a little before show up there, and then after. Now you can imagine all the different things you can do for composition with this kind of format. So it's very helpful, very useful to reuse components and compose them in this kind of way. Now, here comes a very simple question. What about dynamic, right? And that's why we added that button where it says change. We're going to actually call it change color. And when it clicks, all we want is the button to recall our application and change some properties. Very simple, right? So we have to call our app with our new property. And basically what we're doing here is we're going to say the color should come from the props, right? So our default color blue, we're actually going to move this and put it here where we first call the app here. Oops. So that will be our default. And then we can just pass it like this, for instance. Put that into curly braces. Nope, didn't seem to work. Color blue, props. No, didn't like it. All right, let's just try it like this then. Props.color. How about that? No, there's probably some other error happening. Let's see. On click to app. Everything looks good here. All right, let's go check out. Oh, we got a little error warning there. Unexpected identifier. What is that? Let's see where it's going from. All right, let's just back up. That's another way to do it until we don't see that error. Oh, we're missing a comma. Ah, what do you know? Okay. There we go. That should fix it. Okay, there we go. Now you could obviously you can specify the prop specifically, say color. Why don't we do that? Say props.color. It's very simple that way. And here we're going to change the color based on the click. And we're going to do a little ternary. We're going to say basically like props.color equal blue. Then we'll just change it to red. Whoops, I'm not typing so well today. Or blue. So now every time it gets clicked, that little change button, change color, we wanted to do that. So here, let's make this into an H1 as well. All right, let's see what we got going. Okay. So now you can see it's changing the color there. That's awesome. All right, so what else do we want to show here? Well, we showed one fancy border, but what about if we wanted another one, right? So why don't we just do that? Let's create a second one. Put a little divider there. We're gonna call it fancy border 2. And thanks for, oh, I didn't even type right. Thanks for visiting. How about see you again? Okay. Now, what would you expect to happen to that other border right now? Right now, you see there's no color, right? We're not even referencing it at all. So there's no border being applied. So we have to reference it like this, very similarly. So why don't we do that? We're going to say fancy border number 2. Now, you see what happened there? It only affected the second one, not the first one. In mag.js, you have to have a key for uniquely identifying the component instance from one versus another. So now you can see the first one, welcome, thanks for visiting. The other one is welcome, see you again. So that's an important thing to know. It's the only way that mag.js can know that this instance that you're using is unique versus that instance, because it's really the same instance, okay? So now, how do we change the color for both of them? Well, why don't we give it a shot? So in our border reusable component with colors children, there you go. It's changing both of them. And that's pretty much it. This is, a very simple but, powerful example of how to take a component and reuse it with the children of the one who's calling it. It's taking this props children and putting it into its own component definition. So there you go. I'll put the URL into the video description. Thank you very much, and until next time.